Has Bowers Wilkins just beat itself at its own game? Okay, I reviewed the Bowers Wilkins Px7 S2s back in October 2023, and they were basically a mild reimagining of the S2s. So same design, same case, same everything basically apart from the sound, which had been improved. And it had been improved. It was deeper, it was wider, it was just more controlled, it was better basically. But they were still the same pair of headphones really. Now we have the immediately got it wrong, the Px7 S3s, which are completely different. These are a completely new pair of headphones, which is very exciting. I have 3 questions for them in this video. The first one is, should you upgrade to the S3s from the S2s or the S2es? The second question is, slightly more interesting I think, are they better than the Px8s? These are Bowers Wilkins flagship headphones at the moment. The third question is, if this is your first ever pair of Bowers Wilkins headphones, should you buy the S3s? And before I get into it, a very quick word from not a sponsor, because this video isn't sponsored, but I do have some fantastic brand partners who help me keep the lights on here and help me keep making these free videos. One of those is Brain FM. Brain FM is basically an iOS and Android app which pipes music into your head, which can make you more productive. Now, it's not guaranteed, but for the last 3 years, I've been using this app every single day, and for writing, for email, for any task where you need to really lock into what you're doing. Brain FM for me has been absolutely game changing, and I have a superb offer for you guys. Just click that link in the description. These are the specs for the S3s, which I won't sit here and read out because that's really boring. What's far more interesting is the differences between the S3s and the S2s and the S2es. We have new drivers with a new chassis, new voice coil, new suspension and new magnets for reduced distortion and better dynamics. And for the first time, we have dedicated amps inside of these as well, which, according to Bowers, delivers more energy and scale to the audio. There's also an enhanced DSP, which brings aptX lossless and 24-bit/96 kHz audio for the first time. And for the first time, lots of first times, there's spatial audio coming to the S3s via a firmware update later this year, which is interesting because previously Bowers has always kind of said, nah, we're not bothered about spatial audio, we'll leave that to others. Now they're saying we are interested and we're going to do it our way. So we've got to wait to see what their way is, but that's coming later this year, which is exciting, as is LE Audio and Auracast support. In terms of the stuff that you can use now, there's a 5-band EQ, which is in the Bowers Wilkins app, and that's very nice. There's also completely redesigned noise cancelling, so they've repositioned the mics, they've upgraded the mics, they've done other stuff inside as well. We have new voice processing for clearer calls. There's a slimmer design, which is significant and which I'll come on to later. What else? There's we get 1 extra hour from the 15-minute fast charge, and some other stuff that I'll come on to later. The price, they are $399 in the UK and $429 in Europe. I don't have the pricing for North America at the moment, but as soon as I get that, we'll put that into the description. That means that these are basically 20 quid more expensive than the previous version at launch in the UK, which means they need to perform, which brings me on to my first point of comparison, which is the previous generation. For my testing, I use an iPhone 16e, unbelievably, and Apple Music connected to the headphones via Bluetooth. I know that's not the highest bitrate, etc., but I don't care. In the battle between the S2es and the S3s are much better. They sound so much better than the S2es. Now, just a very, very quick caveat there. These are a wonderful pair of headphones. If you just bought these now, you'd love them because they sound fantastic. But this is where brands like Bowers, they do magic. They do stuff which doesn't make sense. A bit like TVs. You buy a new TV, it's better than the amazing one that you had before. It's a bit like that. But Bowers does this with headphones, and they just sound better when you do an A/B test between the two. I'm not an audiophile, so I'm not going to go into all the different frequency responses and all that sort of stuff. What I will say is that immediately these are brighter. They just sound more pleasing straight out of the box. So, for instance, vocals have got more sparkle to them. There's more width to the audio as well. It just feels like there's more width going on. Everything's a bit more rounded. You know, the bottom end is more controlled. It's just a bit tighter. It feels a little bit deeper at times as well. I think the mid-range has just been pulled back a little bit on the S3s, which may not be popular for certain people, but remember you've got that 5-band EQ now, which you can tweak to your liking in the Bowers Wilkins app. A/B testing between these two, these sound a bit middly, a bit kind of, not muddier, that's wrong, they just sound a bit, I don't like too much middle personally, and these are more pleasing straight out of the box, which some headphone aficionados, some Bowers Uber fans might suggest is Bowers making these a little bit more friendly for the masses, which I don't think that's a criticism. I just think that you have to evolve. You have to get your headphones in front of as many people as possible. And I think the S3s are designed for that, even though they still sound very premium, if that makes sense. A/B testing these two, it's a big upgrade. But that begs one very big question. These are the Px8s, and at the time of filming, they are Bowers Wilkins flagship headphones, and David Beckham wears them, so they must be great. However, they came out in September 2022, which makes them relatively old in terms of headphones. The biggest question I have for them is, are they worse sounding than the brand new Px7 S3s? I can't believe I'm saying that because these are such a good pair of headphones, one of the best pair of headphones I've ever placed on my head. However, the Px7 S3s sound better. They just do. They sound brighter. They're a bit louder, which is interesting. Not in a bad way. They've got a bit more oomph to them in that respect. The mid-range, again, isn't quite as pronounced. The bottom end, which I found really interesting on Unfinished Sympathy by Massive Attack, that great big sub bass, that sub kick, whatever it is, that is just so much nicer to listen to on these. We have to take this with a pinch of salt because these are such a good pair of headphones, but doing an A/B test between the two, you notice these differences, and the bass, that bottom end on the Px7 S3s is just nicer than the Px8s, and overall I prefer the sound on these. However, the Px8 S2s are coming later this year apparently, which is very exciting, but in terms of this comparison, the cheaper headphones win. These are £100 more expensive. But there's more stuff you need to know about the Px7 S3s before you buy them. They come in 3 colours, indigo blue, canvas white and anthracite black, and as always they're very understated but premium colour choices from Bowers. Big fan of those. The other thing I'm a very big fan of is the design. So they have made them much thinner than before. The girth of the ear cup has been reduced considerably. They've redesigned the headband, the arms as well are completely... Everything's different basically. You can even get the headband and the ear cup foam replaced. You have to send them back to Bowers to do that, but you couldn't do that before. That's another new thing, which is quite nice. The result of all of these design changes is the fact they sit on your head with more clamping force. Not in a bad way, in a very good way. I've been wearing these for well over 2 weeks now, pretty much every single day, and they do that amazing thing where they disappear from your head after a while. You forget you're wearing them. I think they might be the comfiest pair of earbuds, the comfiest pair of headphones I've worn for a long time. And the buttons are still physical. There's no touch controls on here, and the fact they've moved them around a bit has made a big difference. The power button is now on the left-hand ear cup. The play and pause button has a kind of little texture to it, and it's been made smaller as well so you can identify it quickly. Comfort-wise, guys, these are amazing. The case is apparently more compact, although it's not by much, to be honest. It's still quite a big headphone case, although it's still very well made, and more importantly, it has that lovely and very addictive internal compartment magnetic flap. The other thing that's had lots of changes is the ANC, the active noise cancelling, and I'll be completely honest, I've A/B tested these against the S2es and I couldn't notice much of a difference really. However, comparing generational changes to active noise cancelling is very difficult. However, what I will say is it's fine, it gets the job done. Bowers and Wilkins, by their own admission, have never put noise cancelling before audio. The drivers are doing both the audio and the noise cancelling, and they much prefer focusing on the audio. I'm all for that, that gets my vote. So they're not as good as the Sony XM5s or the AirPods Max, but these sound better than both of those headphones, to be honest, combined. Telephone calls, once again, feel pretty much the same as they do on the S2es. The only difference is the pass-through mode, which is when you can hear your own voice and you can hear the world around you. I think it's slightly better on the S3s, which makes calling a bit more pleasurable. But again, that isn't what these headphones are about. They just get the job done with ANC and calling. It's all about the audio and the design and the Bowers and Wilkins stuff. And now it's time to answer those 3 questions. Number 1, should you upgrade from the S2s or the S2es to the S3s? No, unless your S2 or S2es are falling apart or you're fed up with them or whatever. It's just not worth it. The differences are there. The sound is much better. The design is completely different, but there's nothing wrong with the S2s and the S2es, unless you're fed up with them or they're dying. That's it. Question number 2 was, are they better than the Px8s? Yes. Should you go to the S3s from the Px8s? No, I would wait for the Px8 S2s, which are coming later this year. On that note, guys, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that review. Number 3, should you make these your first pair of Bowers Wilkins headphones? Oh yeah, definitely. 100% just buy these now. Don't even look at the Px8s. Again, if you want to spend more money, I would wait for the Px8 S2s later this year. But if you want a pair of Bowers Wilkins headphones today, the S3s are the Px7 S3s are wonderful.